So there's a lot wrong.
When Charlie and I first got to Solomon, we noticed that they were trading with Mark Rich, who had fled the country. And we told them we wanted to quit trading with Mark. And they said, well, they were making money doing it in one way or another. And they said, what the hell did we know about crude oil trading? And they wanted to keep trading with him. And only by just total directive could we stop our own employees from trading with Mark Rich. Now, if you can't stop people trading with Mark Rich, when you're focusing on it, just imagine what goes on, in those trading rooms elsewhere. If Bear Stearns, I think the Fed did the right thing by stepping in on Bear Stearns. If Bear Stearns had failed on Sunday night, and they would have walked over to a federal judge and handed him a bankruptcy petition, I guess, at a little after 6 o'clock Midwest time, because that's when Tokyo opened. If they had failed, the next day, as I understand it, they had about 14 and a half, which isn't as bad as it sounds, but 14.5 trillion of derivative contracts. Now, the parties that had those contracts that had a claim against Bear Stearns would have been required, I think, almost by the contracts they signed, but they would have been required to undo those contracts very promptly to establish the damages they would have against the bankrupt estate. Just imagine thousands of counterparties around the world, trying to undo contracts, or everybody knowing they had to undo contracts in a very, very short period of time. The 400 million we tried to reach for and didn't find, we had the luxury of spending about 4 or 5 years unwinding those contracts. These people would have had 4 or 5 hours to do the same thing with everybody else doing it simultaneously. It would have been a spectacle that would have been, I think, of unprecedented proportions, and of course it would have resulted, in my view, of another investment bank or two going down, within a matter of days, because nobody has to leave. Nobody has to lend you money. And in fact, that was one of the interesting things that was said at the testimony when they called them down to the Senate Finance Committee. I think 2 of the witnesses said, we didn't understand. We understood we couldn't borrow money unsecured if people started looking at us with askance. But they said we didn't dream we couldn't borrow money secured. Well, we'd found that out at Solomon, that we were having trouble borrowing money secured 17 years earlier. When the world doesn't want to lend you money, 10 basis points doesn't do much, or 20 basis points or 50 basis points much, or a bigger haircut on collateral. If they don't want to lend you money, they don't want to lend you money. And if you're dependent on borrowed money every day, you have to wake up in the morning hoping the world thinks well of you. And there was a period there a few months ago when I think every investment bank in the United States was plenty worried about whether people were going to think well of them the next morning.